Hi all, thanks for joining today's webinar. I'm Michael. I run brand and marketing here at Form, and we greatly appreciate you taking the time to join us today. We have a really exciting conversation ahead of us. James Bloomer, who is a Form client and installed his own kitchen, will be our guest today, and he'll be taking us on a tour of his experience with Form and his new space. And so we're very grateful for him taking the time as well to share his story with you all. And I also want to introduce you to our co-host, Gabby. She runs content here at Form, and she'll be steering today's discussion. One quick note before we get going. We do encourage questions. There's a chat section at the bottom. There's a Q&A section as well. Please just input your questions there, and I will make sure they get answered during the webinar. But without further ado, Gabby, I'm going to hand it over to you. And James, thanks again for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael, and hello, everyone. Here's James, our superstar for today. James, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is James Bloomer. I'm an architect by trade. I've been doing architecture for about 25 years. Live in Dallas, Texas, in the central part of the nation, and just recently went through the entire process of working with Form and the Form kitchen and doing my own kitchen. Usually I used to doing commercial work. I usually do large construction projects and things like that, but decided I was going to try to do this on my own, and I loved working with Form, and so love sharing that with you.
Yeah, and actually we have a very, very cool video that we prepared in collaboration with James. He sent us amazing footage, and well, I'm going to show it to you so that we can start this story with a beautiful imagery.
My name.
Hold on, you cannot hear the sound, right? I'm sorry. Oh no, yeah, there we go.
My name is James Bloomer, and we just completed a renovation of our kitchen using Form. One of the things when we first bought this house was we knew some of the cabinets were not conducive to storage, but the appliances were pretty much where we needed them to be. So that really kept us within budget in terms of not making major moves with appliances. The other thing that really started us on this process was this kitchen was completely enclosed with a wall. So literally you had to go through doors to get to a dining room or dining area. So what we really wanted to do to make changes was we took all of the original cabinets out. We opened up the space by taking down the wall and making a complete large opening. So it connected to the rest of the house and really was conducive to the way we like to live and have parties and have people over. We started off with the aesthetics. We wanted a very modern, clean aesthetic, but we also have color pops, which are basically people we invite over, food we eat. Color of other items really start to stand out. Some of the features that we were able to do, we were able to have a large island that makes it so that we can have a couple of people sitting there. We can also have a large area to prep. We can also cook. We can talk with other people. Selected some very wide drawers and very deep drawers, and Form's drawers really allowed that. Their soft opening, soft closed features is fantastic. A spice pull-out bin that has our spices and our olive oils and things that we like to cook with. Corner piece that allows us to put a lot of storage in this corner. Another pull-out, a very great workstation, cutting boards. It's got a colander, it's got drying racks, along with this growy fixture and the LK sink. It really functions very well. One of the features that I really like about this kitchen is an appliance lift for a large mixer. I like to bake. I learned baking from my mother when I was growing up, and it became our place where we connected. It's one of those things that either sets out on the counter and is always seen, but in this case, we can bring it out, we can use it, and when we want to put it away, it's just a matter of cleaning everything up, and it soft closes back down into the island space. Working with Form and the Form designers has been great. I'm an architect. I've done a lot of design myself, but I enjoyed working with a designer from Form that knows all of the products. And they know all the features, they know what's available. Give my idea about what we wanted. They responded quickly and very creatively. In this particular case, I installed it myself, which is still challenging, even as an architect knowing construction. You still have a lot of questions. And when I did have a question, it was great to text or call and get immediate responses, usually that day, or if not that day, the next day. It was a great experience.
Bravo. Oh, sorry, one second. Okay, sorry for the technical issue. So James, I would love to conversate with you a little bit more, talk with you a little bit more and dig deeper into what you told us in your story in this video. So I would like to start by asking, how was your old kitchen and why did you need it to remodel it?
Got it. Well, we bought the house initially when we moved to Dallas, and it was probably a mid-70s type house, had great bones to it, and it really fit fairly well to how we lived. But it had been remodeled, and not all of the remodeling was done as carefully as I'm used to having done. And it really came down to remodeling the kitchen because we started remodeling other parts of the house. But this kitchen was completely enclosed with walls all the way around it. And you actually had to go through doors to get into it and to get out of it. And so whenever you were in the kitchen, you're always disconnected from everybody else that was at a dining table or having hors d'oeuvres out in the living room or somewhere else. And we really thought we needed to do something with this kitchen to open it up. And also just aesthetically, it had cabinets that were okay, but it didn't really kind of match the really nice aesthetic that we were trying to achieve in the rest of the house.
That's interesting. Yeah, and I like that you say that it didn't match the aesthetics of your house, because I imagine as an architect you have like a clear aesthetics of what you want, right?
Yes.
And how did you find us? How did you find Form in this beginning of your journey?
Well, I found Form. I mean, as an architect, I read a lot of architectural journals. Form there had been a lot of stories that had been developed about Form when they kind of came into the US market. And so I'd read a lot about where the cabinets came from, was pretty impressed with what a lot of people were saying about it. And even though it was fairly new at the time, I thought I wanted to try to do something like that, that it felt like it fit a good niche for me to be able to talk with designers. And I felt okay doing everything online, Zoom calls usually, and conversing in that way, because that's kind of the way I deal with my own clients. And I thought, and I really like the aesthetics also, obviously, of the choices of colors and doors and everything that Form provided.
Right. And what did you have something in mind already? And tell us a little bit more about the design process with the Form designer, and also like what were you expecting in terms of the design, the aesthetics? What was the inspiration?
Yes. So obviously, as an architect, I came into the project already with an idea of what I wanted. And so I had measured it out, I'd done some sketching, kind of thought about how we used the existing kitchen, because we still had that kitchen, and how we would make it better, or what we would keep, what we liked about it. Obviously, we did some work removing the wall and opening it up before we started the process with Form. But obviously, we didn't know everything that was available with Form and working with a designer that way. So I know it sounds kind of strange about a designer working with another designer, but in reality, it helps you think outside the box a lot of times. Sometimes, even for myself, I get stuck in my own ideas, and it's good to hear other people talk about, oh, have you thought about this or thought about that type things on it. Sometimes I like to tell people, it's like a surgeon. He may know how to do the surgery, but he really would never do it on himself, right? So it helps to talk to other designers and go back and forth about ideas. And obviously the form designers know everything that's available, where I might not know certain products that Form has that fits a certain idea that might work really well.
Nice, that's really cool. And there's another thing that you mentioned in our previous conversations that I thought was super interesting, and it's a word that you repeated constantly in our interview, and it's the conducive design. Can you explain a little bit about what it is and why it is super important to consider this when designing your kitchen, even though you're not a professional designer?
Right. So, I mean, everybody kind of thinks about it, I think, but they may not really think about it in really specific terms. But a design that is conducive to your lifestyle is what it really means. You design a space that's conducive to you and the way you live your life, how you cook, how you entertain people, and how you like to see that happen in your own mind. That's kind of what conducive design style is that you're looking for how, and you really have to think about that sometimes, is how do I invite people over, and what do we do, and how do we share a glass of wine and share hors d'oeuvres? Obviously, sometimes that happens around a central island in a kitchen. Sometimes it happens somewhere else. And so when you're doing that kind of design work, you need to really think about, making it conducive to yourself and how you want to be in your lifestyle.
Right. And how did the form designer help you achieve this conducive design?
I think what was good was it did help me being an architect. I could actually lay out everything that we had already. And one of the things that helped for our budget was that the major appliances were already set where we wanted them. So we didn't make any major moves that way. But what helped working with the designers, if we could go back and forth again with ideas about, okay, we have this corner, we have these form kitchens. They're also in metric, which in America we're not used to doing. I happen to be used to doing it because I've done work outside of the US, but it's still a challenge sometimes to do that. And so working back and forth with that, she really helped say, hey, let's look at this corner unit that, as an example, we had an idea in which there was nothing in the corner. And so it just felt like we were losing space there, that we could have some storage. And so she went back and forth and started presenting different ideas that, hey, we've got certain products that we have this kind of like what we call a lazy Susan here in the US idea that can fit exactly in the corner, still keep your oven and stove where it's at. And we think we can make all of this work. So it was really good going back and forth about those kind of ideas.
Great. And that leads me to another question, because you installed the kitchen yourself. I think that is amazing. Can you tell us a bit about that experience and how easy or challenging it was, and what challenges you faced?
Sure. I mean, I guess it could, some people could view an architect saying, oh, you've got an extra jump on everybody because you're used to being around construction and you see things done. But in real life, I mean, most of my work is project management and design work and problem solving. But it's not necessarily getting in there and, you know, grabbing the hammer or the saw and actually doing it yourself. So I think that was probably the biggest challenge, was kind of saying, can I really do this on it? But I was convinced because of the modularity of the cabinets were such, and when I looked into the way that form kitchens get mounted to the walls and how it all sets on legs that are very adjustable, it became, I convinced myself I can do this. Now, I'm not going to say I did it as quickly as a professional probably could have done it. And I always joke around that I probably made $4 an hour by the time I got to the end because I took so long. But my wife was very, very patient with me, but I got it all finished eventually. But it is actually, once you understand how it mounts, and Form was very, very good at presenting with every cabinet it had presented, this is how it mounts. This is what it needs to mount to on your wall. It mounts differently than American cabinets because they have these steel bars that go, like the upper cabinets all hang on a steel bar, but that also makes it very adjustable. So all of a sudden now I can adjust it up and down and sideways. And once you determine that, and I can tell you anybody, whether you're an architect or anybody else, can very easily just start, just slowly learn it, and you can put it together, I think.
That's amazing. That's really great. Well, I have one final question. How are you living your kitchen? What do you love to do there? How do you enjoy it, you and your wife, your family?
So kind of like the video said, I one of the things I really wanted in the kitchen was kind of a baking area, because that's kind of what I grew up with my mother. And I still do it now with my nieces and my nephews, and I have them over and we kind of, that's one thing we do. So I kind of built in the mixer area that you saw demonstrated in the video, and I kind of wanted that to be able to be there, but easily available to come out. And the other thing was I wanted it to have a nice island where we could set, food out, we could set some wine out, people could come around, we could converse, they could sit there, and we could talk back and forth, make a meal, and all of us enjoy each other and enjoy conversations. Sometimes dance parties start up in there once in a while. We got the music going. So that's, and then we enjoy it that way. So we're enjoying it a lot. So
that's great.
Michael here, I'm going to jump in. We actually have a question from one of the attendees, Susan. She'd love to know what kind of countertop material you went with, and is there a material you would recommend?
Okay. So the material I went with was a quartz material, and the product was called MSI, is the product manufacturer, and you can look them up online. They have a wide variety of veining and solid colors, and it also happened to be a very affordable quartz material that is on the market. It's as affordable as solid surfacing or any other material on it. I mean, we considered marble, we considered other types, but we kind of landed on that. And it's the actual name of that pattern is called Calicotta Leone. And we liked it because it had a very wide veining to it. And so, yeah, That's what we have for all of the countertop materials. And again, we hired that out. See, we went down, made the selection, and then an installer actually installed that part because they're just way too heavy for one person to lift around on that.
That's great. Susan has a follow-up question. Do you prefer quartz to natural stone?
Oh, good question. I've used both in projects. I like quartz because it's very predictable on it. And sometimes if I didn't do this, I didn't book match anything on my kitchen, but I could have if I wanted to. And it's very easy to book match. And if anybody knows what that is it's taking a veined material and like a book, you actually open it up and the veins all come together and join exactly at the same spot. Some people like that, especially on backsplashes that they've done that. So I kind of like the material. It's also very durable. Natural stone, it's more about expectations that sometimes you'll get some variations in colors. And you have to expect that with natural stone. That's just what it is. It's coming straight out of the earth. And so some people think, oh, why isn't it completely, black here, but it turns gray kind of here? So it's more expectations and kind of fit our budget. And we like the white also for our kitchen.
That's great. Thank you. We've got another question coming in. What was the most challenging aspect of the project relative to the cabinets?
The most challenging aspect of that. I think the most challenging aspect was probably the upper cabinets, understanding the mounting procedure of it. And it was probably more my challenge than the actual cabinet challenge, but American cabinets, they can get screwed in anywhere and they can mount to the wall, where on the form cabinets, and it says so when you read everything, is you have to have a mounting piece exactly where you're going to mount the cabinets. And then understanding where I needed to get backer pieces inside the wall. So probably that piece was challenging. And then probably the other piece was really kind of understanding where the layout and where you start. You really want to start in a corner and then work your way out when you're doing your layout. And then understanding very quickly dry fit everything in. And then what I mean by that is just set your cabinets in and make sure they all kind of make sense before you start screwing everything down and making it permanent. That was probably the most challenging pieces I had.
Great. I'm excited for your answer on this one. This is from Cynthia. Do you have any advice on how to meld the look of modern cabinetry in a more traditional / colonial type house?
Modern cabinetry. Well, first of all, I think I would, and I know Form has this, they have some more traditional like doors rather than the flat style doors in a more traditional house, which are still very modern looking. So you might look, what I call a panel door is what it is. It's two different surfaces at two different levels. I would probably look at that kind of door instead of just a flat panel door, just so it still has what I call a transitional look between modern and a traditional type house. And I think once you start doing that, and then other things would be color choices that you make, rather than making maybe an all white. Maybe it becomes more of a colored cabinet. You probably noticed I actually have more of a dark slate color on my island. So it countered the all white cabinets that were behind it. Again, you could do that backwards, where you could have done all colored cabinets behind, and maybe it's a white island type thing. It's those kind of things you think about that then can fit it into a more traditional house, but still be a very modern kitchen.
Love that answer. As a follow-on to that question, is there something the Form cabinetry offers that you felt like you maybe weren't seeing elsewhere?
What were they offering that they weren't offering elsewhere? Oh man, that's a good question. I think what they were offering actually was the ability to talk to a designer multiple times as you're going through the design process. That may not be available everywhere. And even though other cabinetry places have showrooms, it's kind of hard to get access all the time to the designer that might be in there. Where I felt like I had a lot of access to the design process, so we could kind of go over some details on it. And I actually produced some details. Like I have a support that where I took multiple panels and ganged them up. I actually have 3 panels all in one spot, just so I could get a thicker edge that I wanted visually for my island. And so I think that kind of access, sometimes you don't always get maybe where you see other things on it. And of course, I think the way you can adjust these cabinets, you don't see that in a lot of more traditional style cabinets you might find, at least here in the States, in terms of like moving cabinets up and down, because inside the cabinet, there is a place where you can screw, or adjustment screws will move them up and down, away from the wall, into the wall, because I can guarantee you in existing houses, there's no wall that exists that's straight up and down perfect on things, and my house included. So
Great. 2 more quick questions. Appreciate all the time, James. One is,
sure.
How long did the process take for your kitchen?
You cut out there a bit. Is that
Oh,
how
sorry.
long did the
Process take?
Gotcha. Boy, I'm trying to remember how long the process. Are you talking like just the design process itself in terms of coming up with everything?
I'm going to guess from start to finish. So kicking off
Start
the
to finish.
design to delivery of the cabinets.
Gotcha. I think when we initially started off, there was a quick design done, and so we could kind of get and this helps a lot for people, I think. So when there's a quick design done, just to get pricing so that they understand this is how much this will cost. So people immediately start to understand, okay, this is going to cost this kind of kitchen, this is going to cost this much, and then you can say, oh, maybe I'm going to expand it here, or maybe I'm going to cut back to fit my budget. And that probably took a couple of weeks just to do that. But then they come up with the full design. Oh man, I can't remember, but I think it was probably maybe 6 weeks to kind of go back and forth and get the final and there's final renderings. I mean, the background behind me is actually the final rendering of my kitchen. Even though it looks like I'm sitting in my kitchen right now, that was provided by Form that you see behind me. So I got a really good idea to look at that. So that's how long that took. The amount of time it took me to install the kitchen. And again, it's me. I had my nephew come over and help me lift up the upper cabinets and put them in place, obviously. I'm thinking it probably took me 6 weeks fully to get the thing completely mounted in and stuff. And I'm not counting the countertops because that's a separate thing where I had to get another contractor, subcontractor to get the countertops, get them all polished, put in. And then I had a tile person come in because I have penny round tiles that are white, penny rounds that are all around on that, but that probably took another week or two to do that. So yeah, that's about how long it took me to get it done.
Great. And one final question, appreciate the time.
Yeah.
This is someone who has a mid-century modern house with pine floors. Are there colors or styles that stand out for you in terms of cabinetry?
In terms of cabinetry, you mean in terms of like a mid-century house? What kind of materials?
This attendee has a mid-century home. They have pine floors in the kitchen, and they're just curious if you have any top of mind thoughts around either color or style.
Right, exactly. I love mid-century homes. I used to live in LA, and there were some beautiful mid-century homes there. With pine floors, it's interesting to hear pine floors in a mid-century house, but they had cork floors and everything else on it. I would keep it simple still. I mean, I think the form cabinetry style fits that idea very much. I think I would really try to just keep it very simple for mid-century. They were very simple on that. They were also very open. And so I think they could fit a mid-century house very well. I would even look at some color. Mid-centuries a lot of time use color in their cabinetry. So you wouldn't necessarily have to stick with a white or you could look for a neutral gray, but even maybe some blue tones that kind of really play off those wood tones that are in your floor. Could look really quite beautiful doing something like that.
Amazing. And you got a big thank you for that response. So
Thanks.
Good. I think we've gotten to, I'm just double checking. I think we've gotten to every attendee question.
I've got one more thing that I thought about, that I just thought about this. And this is an important thing because the cabinetry is all in metric. And Europeans always laugh because, as well as South Americans and everybody else who is on metric, metric is quite easy once you know about it. But in fact, I'll grab it here off my desk. I had this measuring tape, and in this measuring tape, it has both centimeters and inches on it. So my biggest thing, if you're going to try to do this yourself, make sure you get something like that and really start to understand how to do metric and inches, because if you're in America, your house was built in the imperial style with inches and feet, and you're going to work with a product that is very, very on spot metric. When it says it's 800 centimeters wide, it is 800 centimeters wide. And then you're going to go, what is that in inches and things? So that's a kind tip right there, that once you have that and get one of those little measuring tapes, it'll save you hours and hours of time and questions.
Well, that's a great tip. Well, thank you so much, James. Really, we really appreciate it. You've been such a wonderful supporter of Form, and we're so glad we got to work together on your kitchen. For everyone that attended the webinar today, we'll be sending a recording of this. We'll also send out a link to James's video on YouTube of his kitchen tour. And consider Form a resource for your project. If you ever have questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. But James, thanks again. Really a lovely conversation.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you, James.
Thanks all.
Thanks.
Thanks all.